Charles Manson. Born in Cincinnati, Ohio in 1934, his mother, Kathleen Maddox, was just 16. His childhood was a revolving door of neglect and institutions. This constant upheaval shaped him. He learned survival, how to read people and find their weaknesses. His youth was spent in and out of reform schools and prisons. Prison became his university. He studied people, not books. He delved into Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. He encountered Scientology while incarcerated. These fragments of knowledge formed his manipulative prowess. The mid-1960s saw him released into a rapidly changing world. The civil rights movement, Vietnam War protests, and hippie culture were in full swing. Manson, upon his release in 1967, stepped into this maelstrom. He found a society ripe for his particular brand of poison. San Francisco, 1967, the summer of love. Haight-Ashbury was the epicenter, a kaleidoscope of colors, sounds, and ideals. Charles Manson, fresh from prison, gravitated here. He began to gather followers, mostly young women. They were searching, vulnerable. He offered them acceptance, a community, a family. He played his guitar, sang hypnotic songs, and spoke of love and freedom. The group was nomadic at first, living in a dilapidated school bus. They traveled, scavenged, and embraced a communal lifestyle. Manson was the undisputed leader. The family eventually settled at Spahn Ranch, a former movie set near Los Angeles. Here, Manson's control intensified. The family was becoming a cult, with Manson as its self-proclaimed messiah. At Spahn Ranch, Manson's manipulation became an art form. Love bombing was a common technique. New recruits were showered with affection, creating a powerful bond. Isolation was another cornerstone of his control. Manson discouraged contact with the outside world. He controlled the flow of information, creating a closed loop. Drugs played a significant role, especially LSD. Manson would often dose his followers, guiding their trips. Fear was perhaps his most potent weapon. His control was absolute, total. The Beatles' White Album, released in 1968, became a central text for Manson. He listened to it obsessively, hearing messages and prophecies. For Manson, Helter Skelter was a coded reference to an impending apocalyptic race war. He convinced his followers that the Beatles were speaking directly to them. He preached that black people would rise up and slaughter the white establishment. Manson believed the race war wasn't starting quickly enough. He decided to ignite the spark. The crimes they would commit were intended to incite racial hatred. The phrase "Helter Skelter" would be scrawled in blood at crime scenes. The stage was set for unimaginable violence. The summer of 1969. The Manson family's descent into violence was accelerating. Before the Tate-LaBianca murders, there was another killing. The victim was Gary Hinman, a music teacher. Manson believed Hinman had money and dispatched followers to get it. Hinman was held captive for several days, starting around July 25, 1969. He was tortured and beaten. Manson himself even paid a visit, slicing Hinman's ear with a sword. On July 27th, Bobby Beausoleil stabbed Hinman to death. After the killing, they wrote "Political Piggy" on the wall in Hinman's blood. They also drew a panther paw, attempting to frame black radicals. Beausoleil was arrested a few days later, caught driving Hinman's car. This arrest put pressure on Manson. He needed a diversion, something big. The Hinman murder was a crucial turning point. The family had killed for him. There was no turning back. August 8, 1969, Manson gathered a select group of his followers: Tex Watson, Susan Atkins, Patricia Krenwinkel, and Linda Kasabian. He gave them their instructions. Go to the house at 10050 Cielo Drive, the former residence of record producer Terry Melcher. Manson told them to totally destroy everyone in it. The house was then occupied by film director Roman Polanski and his wife, actress Sharon Tate. Tate was 8.5 months pregnant. Polanski was away in Europe. Also present were Jay Sebring, Wojciech Frykowski, and Abigail Folger. The family members cut the phone lines and scaled the fence. Their first victim was Stephen Parent, an 18-year-old boy. Inside the house, the horror unfolded. Watson, Atkins, and Krenwinkel herded the victims into the living room. What followed was an orgy of violence. Sharon Tate pleaded for the life of her unborn child. She was stabbed 16 times. Sebring, Frykowski, and Folger were also brutally murdered. The word pig was scrawled on the front door in Sharon Tate's blood. The Manson family had announced their presence in the most gruesome way imaginable. The night after the Tate murders, Manson was displeased. He felt the killings at Cielo Drive had been too chaotic. He decided to lead the next excursion himself. On the night of August 9, 1969, he took Watson, Atkins, Krenwinkel, and Kasabian. He also included Leslie Van Houten and Steve Clem Grogan. They drove around Los Angeles looking for victims. Manson selected a house at random 3301 Waverly Drive, the home of Leno LaBianca and his wife Rosemary. Manson entered the house alone initially, tying up the couple. He reassured them they wouldn't be harmed, then left. He instructed Watson, Krenwinkel, and Van Houten to go inside and kill the LaBiancas. Leno was stabbed multiple times with a bayonet. A carving fork was left protruding from his stomach. The word war was carved into his flesh. The killers then used the victims' blood to write messages on the walls. The investigation into the Tate-LaBianca murders was complex. For weeks, the killers remained free. The LAPD pursued various leads. The helter-skelter motive was not immediately apparent. The family continued their life at Spahn Ranch and later Barker Ranch in Death Valley. They were eventually arrested on unrelated charges. The breakthrough came via Susan Atkins, who bragged about her involvement in the murders. Other family members began to talk. Linda Kasabian became a key witness for the prosecution. The trial, which began in June 1970, was a media circus. Manson and his co-defendants turned the courtroom into a theater of the absurd. They carved X's into their foreheads, shouted and sang. In January 1971, Manson and his followers were found guilty and sentenced to death. California abolished the death penalty in 1972, so their sentences were commuted to life in prison. The reign of terror was over, but the questions and fascination remained. The Manson family murders shattered an era's innocence. The late 1960s counterculture, with its ideals of peace, love, and freedom, was tainted. The image of the benign, long-haired hippie was replaced by the demonic figure of Manson. The dark underbelly of the psychedelic dream had been exposed. The optimism of the summer of love curdled into the paranoia of the Manson summer. The social impact was profound. Fear of cults intensified. The phrase helter-skelter entered the lexicon, synonymous with chaos and apocalyptic violence. The crimes fueled a media frenzy. Manson himself became a macabre cultural icon. His image, his words, his very name continue to evoke a visceral reaction. The story taps into primal fears, the fear of the outsider, the fear of hidden evil, the fear of losing control. It's a cautionary tale, a stark reminder of the darkness that can exist within human nature. Even today, the Manson family saga continues to disturb and captivate. The legacy of Charles Manson is one of terror, manipulation, and a dream that turned into a horrifying nightmare.